Torin was a simple man with a quiet life. He lived on the edge of a green forest on planet Valara, where the sky was always purple and the trees glowed faintly at night. He was not a soldier, not a scientist, and not an explorer. He was just a botanist, someone who loved plants and studied them. Every day, he walked deep into the forest with a small bag, collecting leaves, seeds, and samples for his small research garden. That morning, the forest was peaceful. Birds with shining feathers sang softly, and strange flowers opened their colorful petals. Torin was carefully examining a vine that wrapped around a glowing tree when he suddenly heard a loud, strange sound. It was like a whistle and a thump together. The ground shook just a little, and birds flew into the sky. He stood up straight and listened carefully. Then he heard it again, a deep cracking sound in the distance. Smoke rose above the trees far. Ahead, maybe a small meteor, he said to himself. But something in his chest told him it wasn't a rock. It felt different. Torin followed the smoke, pushing through tall grass and silver-leafed branches. After walking for 15 minutes, he reached a small clearing he had never seen before. There, in the middle of the crushed trees, was a strange ship. It was not large, and it was shaped like a smooth oval. It had bright blue lights on the side, and its surface looked like polished stone. One of its wings was broken, and smoke came from underneath. Torin stepped closer, carefully watching for signs of danger. But everything was still. Then he saw her, lying beside the ship. Half covered in leaves and soft moss was a girl. Her skin was pale with a soft shimmer, like moonlight on water. Her hair was long and light blue, and small glowing dots floated gently around her body. Her clothes were thin and silky, with patterns that looked like stars. She wasn't moving. Torin rushed forward, forgetting all his fear. He knelt beside her and gently touched her neck, checking for breath. She was breathing softly, slowly. "She's alive," he whispered. He looked around. No one was coming, no other ship in the sky. She was alone. Torin gently placed his arms under her shoulders and knees and lifted her up. She was light, like a feather, and her glowing dots moved with him. He carried her carefully back through the forest. As he walked, he wondered who she was. She didn't look like a regular traveler. Something about her felt important, but he had no time to think about that. He had to make sure she was safe. After a slow walk back, he reached his small camp, just a tent, a table, and some solar panels. He laid her gently on a soft blanket inside the tent and gave her water using a dropper. Then he waited. Hours passed. He kept checking on her, watching her breathing. Once, her fingers moved, and he saw her eyes flutter, but she didn't wake up. At sunset, the sky turned orange and pink. Torin sat beside her, wondering if he should try to send a signal. He didn't know where she was from or what language she spoke, but he decided to prepare a message using his communication tablet. He wrote a simple note: "Found injured traveler. Unknown origin. Needs help." Just as he pressed the button, he heard a soft sound. "Where dot dot dot? Am I?" Torin turned quickly. The girl was awake. Her eyes were wide and shining, like stars. She looked around in confusion. "You're safe," Torin said gently. "I found you near your ship." "You crashed. You were unconscious." She tried to sit up, then held her head. "You touched me." Torin blinked. "Yes, I had to. You were hurt." Her eyes grew wide. "You shouldn't have." She looked around with fear. Her glowing dots flickered fast. Torin raised his hands. "I'm sorry, I didn't know." She calmed herself and looked at him more closely. "You are human." "Yes, my name is Torin. I'm just a plant researcher." "I didn't mean to break any rule. I only wanted to help." She looked at him for a long time. Then she gave a small nod. "I am Lyra, of the House of Velaris." Torin tilted his head. "Is that your family?" She gave a soft smile. "I am a princess." Torin's mouth opened, then closed. A princess? He had just carried a royal figure through the forest in his arms? I didn't know, he said quickly. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Lyra looked at her hands, glowing softly. It's not your fault. You didn't know. But still, this is a problem, Torin frowned. Why? She looked up at the sky. Because it is forbidden for anyone outside the royal line to touch a Valoran princess. Torin felt cold. Forbidden, what will happen? Lyra did not answer right away. Instead, she whispered, the old laws will call them, the guardians, they will come. And just then, outside the tent, a quiet hum filled the air. In the distance, a light beam shot into the sky, bright and sharp like a sword of light. Torin stared at it. What is that? Lyra looked at him with deep worry in her eyes. It's the royal beacon. You touched me. And now they know. Torin could not take his eyes off the tall beam of light shooting into the sky. It looked like a pillar made of pure energy. The birds had stopped singing. The forest had gone silent. Only the gentle hum of the beam echoed in the air. Lyra sat quietly inside the tent, her hands resting on her knees. Her glowing dots had turned a soft blue. Her eyes, wide and thoughtful, stared at nothing. Torin took a deep breath and asked, what does the light mean? Lyra slowly looked at him. It means I've been touched by someone not of royal blood. That signal is a warning and a call. Torin frowned. A call? To who? To the guardians of the crown, Lyra replied. They will come. They will find us. Their job is to protect the royal line and the laws that surround it. I didn't mean to break anything, Torin said. Feeling nervous. You were unconscious. I only wanted to help you. I know, she said softly. You acted with kindness. But the old laws, they do not see reason. They only see action. Torin sat down across from her. Then what happens now? Lyra shook her head. I don't know. You are the first human to ever touch a Valoran princess. In our history, such an act has never happened. Torin scratched the back of his head. Well, maybe that's not such a bad thing. Maybe they'll understand once they see I didn't mean any harm. Lyra gave a sad smile. They are not used to change. There was a long silence between them. Outside, the beam of light continued to glow, as if it were watching everything. After a few minutes, Lyra leaned against the side of the tent and closed her eyes. Torin stood up quietly and went outside to prepare something warm to drink. He boiled a small pot of herbal water made from a local flower called myron leaf. It had a calming scent and always helped him feel better when he was tired. When he returned, Lyra opened her eyes slowly. He handed her a small cup. It's just tea, he said. From a flower here. It's safe, I promise. She took it with gentle hands and sipped slowly. It tastes peaceful. Torin smiled. Good. You need rest. Lyra looked at him, her face softer now. You live here alone? Yes, I study the plants here. I send reports to Earth sometimes. It's quiet, but I like it. She nodded. Back home, I am never alone, always watched. Always expected to be perfect. Torin raised an eyebrow. That sounds tiring. It is, she replied. Sometimes. I just wanted to walk through a garden with no one following me. Just once. Torin chuckled lightly. Well, you're in a forest now, far from palaces and rules. But I suppose we didn't escape all the rules after all. Lyra looked down at her cup. I ran away from my ship during a meeting. I needed time to think. I didn't plan to crash. I didn't expect you. Torin looked at her kindly. And I didn't expect a princess to fall from the sky. They both smiled at the same time, and for a moment, the situation felt lighter. But the peace did not last long. Suddenly, a soft sound echoed from the forest. A low hum. It was different from the sound of the light beam. It was deeper, heavier. Torin stood up and looked out of the tent. Far above the trees, Small lights were moving in the sky. They glowed golden and moved in a perfect circle slowly. Getting closer. "They're here," Lyra whispered. "The Guardians." Torin looked back at her. "Can we talk to them? Can you explain?" "I will try," she said. "But once they land, they follow only the old laws." Torin nodded and helped her stand. Though she was still weak, she walked with grace. Her glowing dots were now white dot. As the lights in the sky came closer, they formed a large ring. Then, a ship silent and shining descended in the middle of the clearing. It didn't make a sound. The bottom of the ship opened, and a long ramp touched the ground. 4 tall figures walked down. They wore golden robes with symbols on their shoulders. Their faces were calm, but their eyes held no emotion. Lyra stepped forward. "I am Lyra of House Velaris. I called the beacon." One of the Guardians nodded. The signal confirmed contact. "Who touched you?" Lyra hesitated. "This human saved my life. I crashed. I was unconscious. He helped me without knowing the law." The Guardians looked at Torin. One of them took a step forward. "By the law of sacred touch, this act cannot be ignored." Torin tried to speak. "Please," but the Guardian raised a hand. "He must face the circle of judgment. His intent will be measured." Lyra stepped forward. "Then I will speak for him." The Guardians looked at her in surprise. One of them spoke slowly. "No outsider has ever had a voice in the circle." "I am not an outsider," she said firmly. "I am a princess, and I say he deserves to be heard." The Guardians did not reply at once. Then they turned and walked back toward their ship. "Come," one said, without looking back. "The circle awaits." Torin looked at Lyra. "What happens now?" She looked up at him with calm eyes. "Now we enter a world that doesn't understand you, but I will help them see." Together, they followed the Guardians toward the golden ship, unaware that this moment would be remembered by both humans and Velarans for generations. The golden ship was quiet inside. It felt more like a peaceful hall than a spacecraft. The walls glowed softly, and the floor was smooth like glass but warm under Torin's boots. Strange symbols floated in the air, gently moving as the ship began to rise from the ground. Torin stood beside Lyra, his hands behind his back. He looked around with wide eyes. He had never seen anything like this before. The Guardian stood at the front, speaking in a language that sounded like soft music. Lyra watched them silently, her face calm but serious. "Where are we going?" Torin asked in a low voice. Lyra looked at him. "To the High Circle. It is the oldest place on Valara. A council of voices will listen and decide what happens to you." Torin gave a small nod. "Do they always punish people?" "They follow the old ways," she said. "But maybe this time something will change." Torin didn't answer. He was nervous but also curious. What kind of world had rules like these? Why was touching someone even to help such a big law? Soon, the ship reached the sky. It passed through a field of white clouds and flew toward the shining mountains in the distance. The tallest mountain had something at its peak, a floating ring of stone, turning slowly in the air. The ship moved toward it. As they got closer, Torin saw many more ships floating nearby, all golden and quiet. Gardens hung in the air. Waterfalls flowed upwards instead of down. The sky was deep purple, and small lights sparkled even in daylight. The ship landed on a round platform. The Guardian stepped out first. Lyra followed, and Torin walked just behind her. A wide pathway led to a large round building made of smooth white stone. The doorway was shaped like a star. Inside, many glowing seats formed a circle. In the center was a clear space, like a stage. Several beings sat in the seats, dressed in soft robes of blue and silver. Their faces were older than the Guardians, with eyes full of history. These were the voices of the circle, the ones who remembered the laws and protected them. One of them stood and spoke in a gentle voice. "Let the circle begin." Lyra walked to the center, with Torin beside her. The elder continued. The beacon has called us. A touch has been made a human, unknown to our ways, has carried the blood of Velaris in his arms. This law has stood for 1,000 years, but now we listen. Lyra stepped forward. Her voice was clear. I am Lyra of House Velaris. I crashed in the forest. I was unconscious, broken, and alone. This human Torin found me. He lifted me not in pride, not in harm, but in kindness. He did not know the law. He only knew I was in need. The circle listened. No one interrupted her. He is not like the stories told in our schools, Lyra continued. He did not ask who I was. He did not try to use me. He simply helped. And when I told him the truth, he was afraid not for himself, but because he did not want to cause me trouble. Torin felt his cheeks warm. He looked down. A second voice from the circle spoke, calm but firm. The law was clear. Sacred touch cannot be broken. Lyra replied, but what is the purpose of the law? To protect the royal line? Or to protect kindness itself? Are we so locked in our fear that we punish those who show care? The circle was silent. Torin stood quietly beside her, his heart beating fast. Then another elder spoke, older than the rest. Her voice was like wind through trees. Let the human speak. Torin looked up. Me? Yes, the elder said. You came with no knowledge of us. Speak from your truth. Torin stepped forward, trying not to trip. I didn't know anything about your customs, he began. I was just walking through the forest, collecting plants. Then I heard a sound, and I found her, Princess Lyra. She was hurt. Unconscious, I thought. If I left her there, she might not survive. He paused, gathering his thoughts. I carried her to my tent. I gave her water. I didn't know who she was until she woke up. And when she told me about the law, I felt scared. Not because I was guilty, but because I didn't want to hurt her. That was never my goal. He looked around the circle. I'm not asking for anything. I just hope that helping someone is not something to be punished. For a moment, the room was silent. Then the elder who first spoke nodded slowly. The law is old, he said, but perhaps kindness is older. The members of the circle began to hum gently. It was not speech, but something deeper. Lyra closed her eyes. Torin just stood still. After a moment, the hum faded. The elder spoke again. The circle has heard. But to decide truly, we must summon the memory stone. At the center of the room, the floor shifted. A small crystal rose from the ground. It glowed with soft colors. The guardian stepped forward. The memory stone will show the truth, one said. Not by words, but by feeling. You, Torin, must place your hand on it. Torin looked at Lyra. She nodded. It will not harm you. He stepped forward, took a breath, and touched the stone dot at once. The air around them changed. The circle saw flashes of his memory carrying Lyra through the forest, gently giving her water, sitting beside her as she woke. His thoughts were clear, and so were his feelings. The circle watched in silence. When the vision ended, the elder stood. We have seen the truth. Another voice added, no harm, no pride, only care. Then, the oldest voice of the circle declared, we do not erase the law, but we open a path. This human has shown us that kindness does not know species. He shall not be punished. Instead, he shall be tested. Torin blinked. Tested? Lyra stepped beside him. The trial of trust, she said softly. Those 3 words stayed in Torin's mind like an echo. He didn't know what it meant, or what it would involve. But from the way Lyra said it, with both worry and hope, he could tell it was something very old and very important. Circle's meeting ended. The guardians guided Torin and Lyra out of the hall. The wind was soft outside, and the floating garden swayed gently in the sky. Ships moved quietly above them, like golden birds with glowing wings. Torin looked at Lyra. What is this trial of trust? She walked slowly beside him, thinking. Before she answered, long ago, it was a test given to strangers who wished to form peace with the Velaran people. Before technology, before cities, it is not about strength. It is about the heart. Torin gave a small smile. That sounds better than a court or a prison. Lyra smiled too, though a little sadly. Still, it is not easy. You will be taken to a place where your actions will decide everything. You will not know the rules. You will not be guided. You must choose by feeling, not by logic. Torin nodded. I'll do my best. Soon, they reached a quiet platform where a new ship was waiting. It was larger than the first one, shaped like a floating crystal. Its door opened without sound. The royal ship, Lyra said softly. It belongs to my family. They've sent it now. Because the Circle's decision will be watched closely. Torin looked up at the shining ship. So I'm going into the heart of your world. Yes, she said. To the gardens of Kalanor. That is where the trial will take place. He stepped forward. Will you come with me? I cannot enter. The trial, she said. But I will be nearby, watching, hoping. Torin nodded and walked into the ship. Inside, the walls shimmered like glass, and the air smelled of flowers. A soft voice greeted him. It was the ship's guide, calm, gentle. And not a person, but a voice of the ship itself. Welcome, Torin of Earth, the voice said. You have been marked for the trial of trust. Please take a seat. We will begin our journey. He sat near a wide window. The ship rose slowly, then flew forward over forests, rivers, and glowing mountains. The sky began to change from purple to deep blue. Far ahead, Torin saw something new. A floating island dot. It was massive, hanging in the air like a dream. Trees covered its surface, but not like the forests he knew. These trees were tall and silver, their leaves changing colors as they moved. Water flowed through the air in gentle streams, forming small bridges and paths. The gardens of Kalanor. The ship gently landed on a quiet platform. The door opened, and the voice spoke again. You may begin. The trial awaits. Torin stepped outside. The air was fresh and cool. The ground beneath his feet felt soft, like moss. No one was around. Only the trees, the wind, and the sky. He looked around. There was no path, no sign, no instructions. He walked forward, letting his steps be guided by instinct. Soon, he reached a small stream. A tiny creature stood nearby, round, with soft fur and large eyes. It looked at him, then at the water. The creature stepped toward the water and tried to cross, but it slipped and fell on its side. It squeaked. Quietly, Torin hurried to it. He gently picked it up and placed it on the other side of the stream. The creature looked at him, blinked twice, and then ran into the trees. He smiled. Well, that was nice. As he walked further, the forest began to change. The light became softer, and the trees curved over him like arches. In the distance, he saw something shiny on the ground. It was a stone. But not just any stone, it glowed with colors that shifted with his breath. As he reached down to pick it up, a voice came from above. Leave it, the voice said. It was soft, almost like a whisper on the wind. Torin paused. Why? But there was no answer. He looked at the stone again. It was beautiful, but it didn't feel like it belonged to him. So he stood up and walked away. He continued walking, passing through strange and peaceful places. A field of floating petals, a tree with singing leaves, a pond where the water glowed with stars. In each place, small things happened. A fallen branch blocked a bird's nest. He moved it gently. A flower had wilted in dry soil. He poured water from his bottle onto it. He wasn't sure if any of this was part of the trial. No one told him what was right or wrong. He simply followed what felt kind. After some time, he reached the center of the garden. A large tree stood there, taller than any other. Its branches spread wide, and at its base was a small pool of clear water. He sat down by the tree, tired but calm. Suddenly, the sky above shimmered. A shape appeared. It was not real, but made of light. It was Lyra, watching through a projection. She smiled at him. "You've done well, Torin." He stood up. "Was that the trial?" "Yes," she said. "And you passed it by simply being yourself." From the trees, the guardians stepped forward, quiet and graceful. One of them held a small crystal, a sign of completion. The elder guardian spoke. "You were tested not by challenge, but by truth. You chose care over pride, and patience over power. The gardens accept you." Torin took the crystal in his hand. It was warm. Lyra's voice continued. "Now your story will be written into the history of Valara. A human who broke an old law, but opened a new door." He looked up at her image. "In the sky, I'm glad I found you in that forest." She smiled gently. "And I'm glad you lifted me, even when you didn't know what it meant." Torin stood under the glowing trees of the gardens of Kalinor. The soft crystal he had received from the guardian still rested in his hand. It pulsed gently, like a quiet heartbeat. Around him, the forest seemed to smile. The birds sang again. The petals floated down slowly from the silver trees. He had passed the trial of trust, but something in his heart told him the journey was not yet complete. Above him, the sky opened like a curtain. A golden ship came down silently and stopped near the platform. The doors slid open. From inside, a figure stepped out. It was Lyra. This time, she wore a soft robe of white and silver, and her glowing dots were brighter than before. A crown of light circled gently above her head, not heavy, but floating like a ring of soft energy. Torin smiled when he saw her. "You came in person," Lyra nodded. "Yes, today I must speak to the Great Hall. The story of what happened must be told to all of Valara, and I want you to stand with me." Torin's smile faded slightly. "Me, in front of your people?" "Yes," she said kindly. "You are now part of this story. They must see you, hear you, know you." Torin looked down at the crystal in his hand. "I'm just a human from Earth, a plant collector. You are also the one who showed our people that kindness can come from any world," Lyra said softly. "That matters," Torin nodded slowly. "Then I will come." They both entered the golden ship. It lifted into the sky once more, but this time it did not feel like a journey into danger. It felt like a return with purpose. As they flew toward the capital of Valara, Torin looked out the window. Tall white towers touched the clouds. Roads of light moved in the air, with small gliders passing by. The city below sparkled with soft gold and green. It was peaceful, beautiful, and very different from the quiet forests he loved. The ship landed in front of the Hall of Harmony, a giant round building made of crystal and stone. A crowd had gathered outside, their clothes glowing with soft patterns. They watched quietly as the doors of the ship opened. Lyra stepped out first. The people bowed deeply. Then, when Torin stepped out beside her, quiet gasps filled the air. Some looked confused, some curious, some even a little surprised, but none were angry. Inside the hall, members of the royal council were seated in a wide circle. High elders sat in the center, their robes marked with stars and moons. This was where the highest truths of Valara were spoken. Lyra walked to the center. Torin stood beside her. The crystal he held shimmered gently in his hand. An elder stood. "Lyra of Velaris, you called this meeting. Speak." Lyra bowed her head and began. "A week ago, I left my ship during a time of great pressure. I needed space to think. I traveled beyond the safe paths and crashed in the southern forest. I was unconscious, alone, and without contact." The hall was silent. She continued. "A human Torin found me. He is not a warrior or a leader. He is a plant researcher, simple, quiet, and gentle. He saw someone who needed help and lifted me from the ground, unaware of our law. Soft whispers moved through the crowd. Yes, she said clearly. He touched me. And the beacon activated. The law had been broken. But this law was made long ago, during a time of fear, not of trust. The elders listened, their faces unreadable. I woke in his care, Lyra said, and I saw no greed, no harm, no pride. I saw kindness, respect, calm, when I told him about the law. He did not run. He did not argue. He only said, "I'm sorry." She looked around the room. We must ask ourselves, what are we protecting? If we punish one who saves, what message do we send? If our laws stop us from seeing truth, are we truly wise? Torin stood quietly beside her, saying nothing. He didn't feel the need to speak. Lyra's words carried everything. She stepped forward and raised her voice slightly. Today, I ask not for the law to be destroyed, but for it to grow. Let the law make space for moments of truth. Let it make room for hearts that act without harm. One of the elders spoke. The people of Vilara have lived by these rules for centuries. Why change now? Lyra answered calmly, because we have changed. Our world is opening. The stars are closer. The visitors from other worlds are no longer threats, they are neighbors. Some may even be friends. She looked at Torin, then turned back to the council. I offer this crystal, she said, motioning to the one in his hand. It is not just a token of the trial. It is a symbol of what he gave, trust without expectation, help without reward. Torin stepped forward and placed the crystal on a small table at the center. Its light spread slowly, creating a soft glow that filled the hall. An elder stood again. The circle of harmony has heard the words. Let the council decide. For a few moments, everything was quiet. The elders closed their eyes, thinking deeply. The room was still. Then slowly the eldest of them all stood. Her voice was soft but powerful. This day, she said, marks a new beginning. The law shall remain, but it shall grow. From now on, if a stranger touches royalty to save a life, and if no harm is found in their heart, they shall not be punished. A wave of light passed through the hall. The crowd outside began to cheer softly. Lyra turned to Torin with bright eyes. You did it. He shook his head. No, we did it. She laughed gently. Perhaps Vilara is ready for more visitors from Earth. Torin smiled. As long as they don't touch anyone without asking. They both laughed. Above them, the crystal glowed brighter than ever. The story of Torin and Lyra had now become part of Velaran history, not as a mistake, but as a message of hope. Torin walked slowly through the floating gardens of Vilara once again. This time, the place felt different. There was no fear in his heart. The trees still sparkled in the light. The silver leaves danced in the soft wind. Birds with glowing feathers sang in the distance. The air smelled fresh, like morning after rain. He had passed the trial of trust before, but now the elders had asked something more of him. Not a second trial, but a final step. A ceremony to show he was ready to stand as a bridge between two worlds. A moment not just for Vilara, but for Earth too. The Guardians had guided him here and left him to walk the final part alone. As Torin walked deeper into the heart of the garden, he remembered Lyra's words from earlier that day. This is not a test to prove who you are. It's a step forward in who you can become. The path curved, leading him toward a round clearing. At the center stood a low stone table with a bowl of clear water. Around it were 5 glowing stones floating just above the ground. Each stone gave off a soft sound, like a quiet bell. Torin stepped forward and stopped near the table. A gentle voice filled the air, not from a person, but from the garden itself. Torin of Earth, you are invited to complete the rite of unity. He took a breath. I'm listening. To complete the rite, you must offer one memory, one promise, and one piece of yourself. Each will be accepted by the garden, and in return, it will give you its blessing. Torin looked at the bowl. The water inside shimmered like silver glass. "All right," he said softly. "Let's try." He placed his hands gently on the edge of the stone table. The first stone floated closer and changed color, turning a soft blue. "Offer your memory," the voice said. Torin closed his eyes. In his mind, he saw the moment he first found Lyra in the forest. Her soft breath, her glowing dots, the way the leaves had fallen around her. He remembered the fear, the confusion, but also the feeling of wanting to protect someone he didn't even know. "I offer the memory of that moment," he said, "when I didn't think about laws or planets or rules. I only thought she needed help." The blue stone glowed brighter, then returned to its place. The second stone moved forward, turning green. "Offer your promise." Torin looked up at the sky. "I promise to be a bridge between Valara and Earth, to tell my people about this world, and to remind yours that kindness is stronger than fear." The green stone accepted his words and floated back. The third stone moved closer. It turned golden. "Offer a piece of yourself." Torin paused. He wasn't sure what that meant. He had nothing in his pockets except his sample bag and a small leaf he had picked from the forest the day he met Lyra. It was shaped like a star and had a gentle glow. He took out the leaf and held it up. "This leaf is from the place where I found her," he said. "It reminds me of who I was and who I became. I leave it here." He placed the leaf into the bowl. The water shimmered, and the golden stone returned to its place. All 5 stones now glowed together. Then the voice spoke again. "You have completed the rite of unity. From this day forward, you are no longer just a visitor. You are a light-bearer between Earth and Valara." Torin stepped back as the stones rose higher. A soft light surrounded him, warm and peaceful. It didn't change his body, but it touched his heart. He felt calm, strong, ready. Just then, footsteps came from behind. He turned and saw Lyra walking toward him. Her robe moved gently with the wind, and her eyes were bright. "You did it," she said. He smiled. "I think the garden helped me more than I helped it." She stood beside him and looked at the bowl of water. The leaf still floated there, glowing. Softly, "You gave something simple," she said, "but full of meaning. That's the kind of gift Valara values." Torin looked at her. "What happens now?" Lyra smiled. "Now we go back, together, and we show our people that change doesn't mean losing who we are. It means becoming more." They began walking back toward the golden ship. Birds flew above them, and the soft music of the stones followed behind. As they reached the edge of the garden, Torin turned for one last look. "Will I ever come back here?" he asked. Lyra looked at him. "This place remembers those who pass the trial. Whenever you return, it will welcome you." He nodded. When they entered the ship, the doors closed, and it lifted into the sky once more. Back in the capital, the people had gathered again. But this time, there were also visitors from other planets, tall beings with glowing eyes, short ones with gentle faces, and even a few early travelers from Earth. Word had spread. The story of the human who touched the princess had reached far and wide. Lyra and Torin stepped out of the ship side by side. The crowd clapped, not with noise, but with soft lights from their hands. It was the Velaran way of showing deep respect. In the center of the crowd, a tall elder stepped forward. He raised his hand. "Torin of Earth," he said, "you have walked the path of trust. You have given honesty, not pride. Kindness, not fear. In honor of this, you are now named the first unity voice between our worlds." Torin bowed, unsure of what to say. Then he looked at Lyra. "Will you walk with me on this journey?" She smiled. "Always." As they stood together, a new chapter of Velaran history began, not written in rules, but in trust, understanding, and hope. The halls of the Velaran capital were alive with soft light and quiet excitement. News of the trial of trust and the naming of Tauren as the first Unity voice had spread quickly. The people gathered not only to celebrate, but to learn and grow. It was a new beginning for Valara and for Earth. Tauren stood beside Lyra in the Great Hall of Harmony. Around them, the council had opened the space for all to speak. Visitors from other planets and humans from Earth sat together. The air was filled with gentle hums of conversation, curiosity, and hope. Lyra smiled at Tauren. "You have done more than pass a trial. You have opened a door." Tauren looked out at the crowd. "I never imagined this when I found you in the forest." Lyra nodded. "Sometimes the smallest acts change the greatest stories." An elder approached the center. Her voice was calm and kind. "Today, we honor the unity between worlds. The law will evolve, as it must, with the hearts of those it serves." She turned to Tauren. "You will help us teach what it means to be a light-bearer, to share knowledge, to build trust." Tauren nodded. "I will do my best." Outside, the sun set behind the silver mountains, painting the sky with colors no painter could capture. Tauren and Lyra stepped onto a balcony overlooking the city. Trees below sparkled with glowing flowers. The river flowed softly through the city, reflecting the lights above. Lyra spoke softly. "Our people are ready to reach out beyond Valara, to new friends, to new stories." Tauren smiled. "And Earth is ready to listen." As the stars appeared, a message arrived from Earth. It was a signal sent by Tauren's team, a simple hello across the stars. Lyra's eyes shone. "Our worlds are no longer alone." Tauren reached out his hand. Lyra took it gently. Together, they watched the night sky. Between the stars, a new path was forming, a path of friendship, respect, and hope. For the first time, two worlds were connected, not by law or fear, but by understanding.